In most professions, spectacular failure ends a career. In today's democratic politics, it often catapults you to even greater heights. No figure illustrates this bizarre failing upward dynamic more vividly than Gavin Newsom. As his final year as governor wraps in 2026, term limits kicking in, Newsom is treated Sacramento like a green screen, a backdrop for his real job, running for national office. Gavin Newsom has mastered failing upward. In most professions, spectacular failure ends a career. In today's democratic politics, it often catapults you to even greater heights. No figure illustrates this bizarre failing upward dynamic more vividly than Gavin Newsom. As his final year as governor wraps in 2026, term limits kicking in, Newsom is treated Sacramento like a green screen, a backdrop for his real job, running for national office. He's been AWOL, jetting to Davos, Munich Security Conference, anywhere with a podium to play the anti-Trump crusader on the global stage. He lectures the world about chaos in Washington under Trump, while California drowns in its own. Exploding homelessness, violent crime that laughs at rosy stats, sky-high living costs, and a budget that requires endless contortions despite record spending. These globe-trotting auditions, endless overseas trips, and out-of-state jaunts leave him detached from Sacramento's daily grind, all while the state's real problems mount. Focused leadership on the ground has been outsourced to staged photo ops and carefully scripted press releases. He's currently crisscrossing the country on a book tour for Young Man in a Hurry, a title that perfectly captures a career defined by sprinting toward the next ladder rung while the current one crumbles from neglect. On late-night television, he delivers cheap laughs at Trump's expense and slick boasts about his bold governance. Actual governing? A disaster. Newsom first seized the national spotlight as mayor of San Francisco by championing Care Not Cash. The initiative promised to slash welfare checks for the homeless and redirect those savings into shelters, housing, and treatment programs. That promise to turn the redirected funds into real lasting solutions never materialized. Instead, the streets filled with tents, needles, and open-air drug markets. The Tenderloin and Market Street devolved into notorious zones of disorder, a visible crisis that only deepened despite endless millions spent. Then came the 2007 scandal, an affair with his campaign manager's wife that triggered resignations and shook City Hall. Newsom reframed the betrayal as a personal alcohol problem, vowing sobriety and counseling. Yet over a decade later, in a 2018 Sacramento Bee interview, he admitted that no formal rehab or treatment ever occurred, just a brief pause before he resumed moderate drinking. A clear pattern emerged. Inconvenient facts get revised and narratives get reshaped. None of these setbacks hindered his ascent. He claimed the largely ceremonial lieutenant governorship, using it to network nationally, push marijuana legalization, and burnish his progressive credentials. By 2018, he won the governorship, stepping into office with a roaring economy, tech-fueled surpluses nearing $100 billion, and unprecedented advantages that few modern governors have enjoyed. Well, few have squandered such advantages so thoroughly. Homelessness propelled Newsom's early career. 2 decades later, California remains the epicenter of America's unsheltered crisis. State audits peg spending at $24 billion in just 5 recent years on homelessness and housing programs, with cumulative figures climbing toward $40 billion or more through bonds, grants, and initiatives. Homelessness surged for years, with California accounting for roughly half the nation's unsheltered population at its peaks. Even recent modest declines can't erase the brutal irony. The very issue Newsom once exploited for political gain now stands as the enduring stain of his governorship. Compounding the problem are record fentanyl overdoses, rampant addiction, and street disorder that sustain encampments. Newsom diverts his energy to Trump-proofing California, convening special sessions, and vowing resistance, while incoming federal policies aim to dismantle the cartel pipelines, directly poisoning the state's communities. The contrast is damning. Genuine solutions target root causes, but Newsom opts for theatrical national confrontation. The COVID era exposed further incompetence. The Employment Development Department, EDD, hemorrhaged $20 to $30 billion in fraudulent unemployment claims, one of the largest public fraud scandals in U.S. history, while legitimate claimants waited months for relief. Meanwhile, Newsom dined maskless at the French Laundry amid the strict lockdowns he'd enforced on everyone else. That hypocrisy ignited the 2021 recall, the second in state history. High-speed rail stands as another symbol of dysfunction. Voters approved the project in 2008 at $33 billion to connect San Francisco and Los Angeles. Today, Phase 1 costs have ballooned to over $126 billion. Yet after nearly 2 decades, no operational high-speed line exists. Just partial tracks in the Central Valley, endless delays, and mounting debt. Critics rightly call it America's costliest train to nowhere. Yet Newsom presses on, spending millions in taxpayer dollars on PR campaigns to combat misinformation about California's image, even as underlying issues persist: soaring living costs, ongoing homelessness struggles, population flight, and vast spending that yields limited or no returns. In recent years, the state has seen net domestic migration losses topping 200,000 annually, with 2024-2025 recording over 216,000 residents leaving for other states, driven by high taxes, crime, and decay. In California, where the cost of living and affordability dominate, 1 in 3 residents name it the top issue. Majorities say the state is heading in the wrong direction, and 7 in 10 expect financial hard times ahead. Nationally, Newsom's 2028 prospects look far shakier than the early buzz suggested. A February Emerson College poll shows him technically leading the Democratic primary field at 20%, narrowly ahead of Pete Buttigieg at 16% and Kamala Harris at 13%, with a massive 24% of voters still undecided. Broader public sentiment, however, moves in the opposite direction. Recent national polls, including an NBC survey, put Newsom underwater with a brutal negative 18 favorability rating, only 27% viewing him positively against 45% negatively. For a governor clearly auditioning for the national stage, these numbers suggest voter fatigue rather than momentum, fueled by California's ongoing crises and Newsom's obvious appetite for the spotlight. Gavin Newsom has mastered failing upward. If this California model is his pitch to America, voters must examine it closely and ruthlessly. What begins in the Golden State has a way of spreading, and the nation cannot afford to replicate this cautionary tale of promises unmet, billions burned, and paradise reduced to purgatory under a governor more invested in the next office than the one he holds. Paradise lost, ambition checked at last. We hope. America, take note.